So let us see how we can load data to this Power Query. So click on the Home tab of the Power Query and then New Source. Remember, we have said new source. This is the feature that you use, or this is the tab that you use when you want to import data from several sources. We are going to import data in the form of Excel workbook. So click on Excel workbook. And once you click on Excel workbook, I want you to import data by the name failed bank list. It is in form of Excel file. This is among the files that we downloaded before our start of the session. Those people will be using the recorded version. I'll be able to provide a link so that you can be able to download this failed bank list. So we don't want to import all the tables in this failed bank list. We only want to import the first table going by the name data. So check on the checkbox on the left of the table name. And then we'll have the preview here. This is the preview of the data that we are almost importing. Then click OK. So when you click OK, this is the interface that you're going to get. One, we'll have the queries pane. It has recorded the first query. We are connected to one query, and the query is going by the name data. We said on the queries pane, you can change the name of the query. Like when you right click on the query, you'll be able to get several options. And among the options is you can be able to delete the query and also rename. For now, we are not going to major on renaming this query. Let us look at something different. Then we go to the query settings. If the query settings is not activated, you can see the query settings on your side. I want you to go to the View tab, and then you activate the query settings. If you don't have the query settings, go to the View tab and then activate or click on the query settings. That is very important. All right. So we have the data here. If you try to scroll, you are going to see this is the data that we imported. But the data is not clean at all. For example, if you look at the column names, you can see we have column 1, column 2, all the way to. But that should not be the case because we know we imported this data with column names. And if you look closely, row number 1 is the row that is contained in the column names. Bank name, city, street, search. Column, row number 1, these are our column names. So how do we make row number 1 to be our column names? To do that, it's very easy. There's a feature right above on the ribbon. I don't know if you can be able to see where my cursor is. Use first row as headers. I want you to click on that feature. Use first row as headers. I want you to click on that feature. And once you click on that feature, you're going to realize that all the details of first row are going to be your table headers. And once you do that transformation, you're going to realize that the transformation has been outlined on the list of steps that have been taken. One, we imported this data from a source, we launched the navigation, and we changed the type. promoted areas. This is what we just have done. We just did in the last step. I'll be able to explain about this change type 1. If you look at the list of steps that are provided here, you can see there are some steps with a gear. You can see this gear on the source, on the navigation, on the promoted areas. Any step with a gear, it means that it can be modified, right? You can change. So for example, if you want to modify this step called promoted areas, then you click on the gear, and then you see you can change this. I don't want to change. So another thing that we say is that you can be able to move these steps. Like if you right click on the last step that is change type 1, just right click, you can see you can move this before, you can as well move after. Another thing we talked about was about deleting these steps. There is a cross on the left side of the step name. So if you want to delete a certain step, then you click on you click on this cross. Like if I want to do away with change type 1, I just need to click on this, and then it reverts back. All right. In the next step, we want to choose specific columns. We don't want to use all this data for our analysis. So we only want to choose specific columns. And the columns that we want to choose for analysis will be bank name, city, street, and closing date. These are the columns that I want us to retain. So we have to do away with some columns. There are 2 ways to do that. Let us start with the first way. The first way is I want you to go to the Home tab of the Power Query, and then you'll be able to see a feature by the name Choose Columns. So click on Choose Columns. Click on Choose Columns. Then Choose Columns. You can see all the column names have been checked. We only want to check column names that we want to retain. So in this case, we've said we want city name, we want bank name, city, street. We don't want SAT, we don't want acquiring institution, we don't want updated date. So these are the columns that we want to remain with. So we're going to click OK. And by doing that, you'll have realized that we'll have how many columns now? Only 4 columns: bank name, city, street, and closing date. All the other columns have been removed. That step has also been registered on the list of applied steps. You can see removed other columns. Removed other columns. Now, if you look at removed other columns, it is a transform that has got a gear, so we can modify this. So let us click on the gear, and then look at this is how we can be able to change that transform. We can include all other columns. The reason as to why we are including all other columns now is because I want to show you the second way to remove some columns. The second way to do away with some columns. So we are clicking all the columns, we are checking all the columns, then okay. So we got all the other columns back, right? I want to show you another way to remove these columns. So the other way would be, I want you to highlight the columns that we want to remain with. So I'm going to highlight bank name, highlight city. If you want to highlight more than one column, you have to highlight the first one, then you press Control. Then highlight street, right? And then the closing date. And while your cursor is on the table header called closing date, right click. While your cursor is on the table header called closing date, right click, and then you choose remove other columns. Choose remove other columns. So when you choose remove other columns, you're going to remain with the same 4 columns. That is bank name, city, street, and date. Bank name, street, city, and closing date. So whatever is lying on the left side of the table header is the data type. So if you click on this data type, you're going to realize that bank name is of the type text because we have this ABC. The same applies to city. It is of the type text. Street, it is of the type text. And closing date, in this case, it is of the type text. But we know that closing date is not of the type text. Closing date is a date. So there is need that we change closing date from being a text to a date. So what we need to do is just click on that picture, ABC 1, 2, 3, and then look for a date. Then okay. So we have changed the data type from text to date. You can see now we have a feature of a calendar, meaning that now closing date is indeed a date. Now, if you want to add a column, you may want to add a column here. Like in this case, I want us to add another column whereby we are going to have city and street combined in one column. We want to add a column whereby we're going to combine city and street. So to add a column, I want us to click on add column on the ribbon. Click on add column on the ribbon. And then look for column from examples. Column from examples, and then from all columns. Add a column from examples, then from all columns. You'll be able to get column 1, and this is the column that we want to add. So I want you to look at the first row of column 1 and double click on that row. You're going to activate the editor, and once the editor is activated, I want you to type Chicago, which is the city, comma, Chicago, type Chicago, which is the city in that case. Then you have a comma, have a space, then IL, which is the street. IL, which is the street. You can type OK, or you can do Control Enter to apply, or just click OK. Then you're going to realize that we'll have an additional column by the name merged. We'll have an additional column by the name merged that is going to consist of the city and the street. So here is our column going by the name merged. It is containing city and the street. For example, you can see in every case, it has been able to pick the city and the street, city and the street, city and the street. This is not the only way to add a column, but This way is common, especially when you want to add a column from already existing columns on your table. If you look at the list of applied steps, you're going to note that that step has been listed down as the most current step that has been applied to our data. Inserted merge column is a merge column. To be able to see other ways of adding columns like conditional column and even duplicating a column. But if you want to have a merge column, then you have to click column from examples. Now, let's talk about duplicating a column. I want us to duplicate one column here, and that is the closing date. So I want you to click on highlight the closing date column, right click, and then you'll be able to see duplicate column. So click on duplicate column. What we said was highlight the closing date, right click, and then duplicate column. That is also another way of adding a column. So after doing that, I want us to highlight the closing date copy, highlight the closing date copy, right click, and then we want to rename this column year. I want us to rename this column year. Then okay. We said right click, click on the closing date copy, right click, then rename the column year. After doing that, after renaming the column year, I want us still to right click on that column. And you'll be able to see the kind of transformations that you can do to a date column. So for example, using this date column, you can extract the year, you can extract the quarter, the month, the week, the day, and even other text transformations like lowercase and uppercase. Now that we labeled our column year, I want us to extract the year from this date. So click on the year, and then you'll be able to see that the transformation that is going to happen is the year is going to be extracted from that date. So we have a year column that is containing the years from these dates. The kind of transformation that you can do to a column will depend on the data type of that column. So for example, if you click on here one more time and look at the kind of transformation that can be done, you can round it off, you can take the power, you can take the square root and some text transforms. So that is about text column transformation, depending on the data type. I want you to try to transform the series to uppercase. Try to transform the series to uppercase. So if you want to extract the month from the closing date, we said you make a copy of the closing date first, duplicate the column. This is the closing date. Click on the closing date copy, and then go to transform, and then get the month. And then you'll be able to see the month here. You can maybe rename this column month. You can rename it month. And you can see that step has been outlined, or it is listed on the list of steps